Hey, what's up, everyone? My name's Lionel, and I'm your host for LT Productions. You are watching I Watch You Watch. We are covering Beauty in Black. This is season 2, episode 3. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for stopping by. Please like this video. You can also subscribe and leave your comments below. Let's get into this new episode. All right, so after hearing from Kimmy about what happened with Angel was the one that was arrested for the car thing, Horace calls Jules and had told him in the last episode, stop it. Don't do that because just told him to stop it. Horace calls again with Jules and asks him, did you stop it? Jules talked to Trackson and says, no, it's done. Horace at this point is pissed at Jules and basically says, I have no confidence in you. So it does look like the angel flew away. Jules and Mallory. Jules goes to the office and talks with Mallory. And Mallory says, tell me what I don't know. Because at this point, she's been filled in by Felicia. Stuff that she did not know beforehand. Because at this point, Mallory says, I know the whole thing. I know what is going on at that club. Da-da-da-da-da. Is Roy in on this? And Jules is playing dumb. And Roy really isn't on this. He just is set up with a bunch of women. And Jules says, well, the less you know, the more that you need to be, it's better for you. And Mallory says, no, I should know so that I can get ahead of this. Of course, Jules knows that Mallory got this information from Felicia, and she says, don't touch her. I'm going to need intel of what's going on, so leave her alone. Norman goes and visits Horace in the hospital, and they have a little talk, and we get a little backstory. And by the way, I really would love like some type of prequel episode, just something to find out what actually happened. Of course, they are saying in this episode that their father was an MFer. What made him do that? And what did he do to y'all to make y'all so evil and just so hateful to one another? Norman says that Horace was the favorite child and Norman was always treated very poorly by his dad. In many cases, Norman would take, I know this feeling, Norman would take the blame for stuff that Horace would do. And it was just like breaking stuff, but he would receive harsh punishment from his dad. I was like, Lord. Well, I at least know the part of taking the blame for stuff. I was influenced heavy by my dad, or by my brother back in the day. And for some reason, he'll tell me, if he do something, take the blame for it, da-da-da-da-da. And then I would get in trouble for it and all that good stuff. I'm glad I grew out of that phase. We've had other phases, me and my brother, over the years. But I'm glad that I knew to stop taking the blame for stuff. Norman says, I looked up to you. And I think that burns a hole in Horace that's even possible for whatever reason. And Norman going to ask, why do we keep fighting? And Horace was like, you serious? I know that you were effing my wife. That's why we're fighting. And you tried to take my company. And Norman said, no, don't be a revisionist historian. You tried to take it from me first. And I had to stop it, da-da-da-da-da. Well, Horace says, you are no brother to me after doing all that. I wish, if it's just about the company, I don't know. Of course, a brother shouldn't sleep with their own brother's spouse. Is that the thorn? Is that the thing that ends it all? Because it just feels like there's more that's happened over the years, Let me see. Then Horace says that you're a thorn in my skin, and I'm going to be evil until the day I die. And then Horace says, I know about the laundering scheme that you have in the trafficking business that you've been running out of that club. And all your shares are about to be gone because it is a felony. Of course, Norman doesn't admit to anything, but he's pissed that Horace knows anything about it. Norman leaves, and soon he's going to be talking with Jules, but we'll get to that in just a minute. Why? Since I see it. Norman informs Jules that Norman knows. that Horace knows. And Norman knows that Judge Harold was the one that told him. There's no way. Jules was like, how do you know that for sure? Because it had to be him. And also, we're going to have to get rid of him. He has to go along with his wife. And of course, Jules wanted to know why his wife, because he tells her everything. If he goes out and has a little fun with another woman, he goes home and tells her like a dumb effer. Like, okay. Joel says that I'll get someone to take care of that. And he said, no, I'm going to do it. And Joel's just like, I wish you would allow me to take care of it. And you guys stop getting your hands dirty and all this, da 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 da. Norman insists that he's going to do it. And Joel said, you can't be messy. I'm going to make a comment whenever the scene comes up when Norman actually does the deed. And just to see if you guys agree with it. Maybe, maybe not. All right, so Charles and Varney, they meet up. And Charles says, I can talk to my brother in regards to what he's doing to you right now and to lay off for you. And Varney says, no. And he said, why don't you just let me do something? Da, 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 da. He says, no, I'm going to do something to make him leave me alone. And what is that, Varney? Because I would love to see you actually step up and quit letting these folks punk you out. Mallory ends up, I think Charles ends up leaving the office, and Mallory invites Varney to dinner. Varney doesn't want to go, but she insists. And we're going to discuss that on down the line. After the store and going to the bank, I think they made it back home, and Rain is asking Kimmy to help her get Sylvie away from here. And Rain was like, I don't really understand. Look, it's just still not really safe around here. Da 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 da. I really need her to go into college. She doesn't need to get caught up in all of this stuff. She's probably more safer really there, just to be honest. But hey, at least she'll be in the will, and nothing should be able to happen to her. Rain ends up announcing to Kimmy that I really don't want the money that you put into the account. You can give it to Sylvia or whatever. And Kimmy's like, what do you mean? What? Why? She says, I want the club. And Kimmy's like, what? I want the club. I know everything about it, and I think that I can really run it well. She says, Kimmy, you got all the smarts and all of that, and this is your lane. The club is my lane. Someone that doesn't really know when they're free really wants to return back to the place. And what else are you going to do with it than what it is? I mean, it goes into your name. You think people are going to stop doing what, like, I would love to see what Rain's big plan, because right now it's a very toxic place. And there's a lot of crime that's happening in that spot. Are you cleaning all that ish out and starting fresh? Because there is a culture amongst there that a lot of people comply to. Some people may be okay doing what they're doing, and some others may not. I don't know. That'll be something to really shake up, unless you just fire everyone and just get new people up in there. I'm just saying, Rain, I don't think it's a good decision to go back. Go back to the place that abused you, that tormented you, that traumatized you, that made you feel like you needed to get a BBL while she was putting Fix-A-Flat in your derriere. Like, what? Nah, but whatever. Charles goes and speaks with Roy. And he really wants Roy to back up off of Varney. Roy gets into this spew where he's knocking gay sex, but then talking in a curious way. I was like, interesting. So how long has it been going on between you and Varney? Of course, Charles doesn't really let on. And then Roy was like, I really don't really get it. And Charles was like, get what? Charles is this big, muscular dude. And he's with you, this more pint-sized person. How in the world could that be? How in the world is that actually matched up? I mean, it's just like a dude with a small lady. Like, you crazy. Leave Varney alone. Charles warns him and said, look, he has a mean streak. Where is it? Are we waiting for Thriller in the Eyes to come out? Like, where's it at? Roy says, I ain't scared of anyone who bangs dudes. Quite stereotypical. He ended up calling Barney a girl and all that. I said, what? We really back in like the 1980s and, well, even further than that. 1980s and 1990s. Y'all crazy. Um, treatment. Oh, the treatment. I'm gonna skip that. Dinner. So Mallory and Varney, they go out to dinner. And guess who's already there? Olivia, and she's causing a scene already. Drunk. Mallory really wanted dinner with Varney because it's really turning out that Mallory is an ally to the gay community. And I'm shocked. Like, the only soft place in Mallory is gay people. Out of everybody. I think it's cool. Anyways, she basically says, look, I was really trying to figure it out when I asked you to have sex with me. What was going on? Is there something wrong with me? Am I getting too old or what? I was doubting myself for a minute. And then she says, look, I was like, okay, so it's just basically your D don't really line up with my B. And she says, it's okay to be gay. Of course, it's like Varney's not at the place of really accepting himself and being out and all that good stuff. Later on, she ends up saying, I do need to get laid discreetly. At this point, since you're out doing your thing, let me just share something about myself. Kind of even the playing field, in my opinion. But he already knew what type of person Mallory was if she was already asking for him to smash her. So it's like, okay, let me just keep it real with you and let you know that I'm going to be cheating and I need some D. Norman goes and visits Harold and Gloria. They weren't expecting him. But anyways, they were about to have dinner, and Miss Gloria, who is Harold's wife, set the plate for him. Gloria goes into the kitchen, and then Horace confronts Harold. Harold was trying to do all these pleasantries, and Norman wasn't for it. Or maybe that was with Horace, I can't remember. But anyways, Horace tells Harold that you had a lot to say to my brother. And then Harold was like, no, I didn't have anything to say. I promise. And Norman's like, wait, why are you so emotional about this? Like, calm down. I didn't say nothing. Well, my brother knows what's going on. I didn't tell him. Then he asked, is there a paper trail that could lead back to us in regards to this? And he said, no, I was very careful. Then we jump back into the restaurant. At this point, Olivia's causing a scene and comes by and sees Varney and Mallory talking. And she wants to sit down. And she said, this looks intense. It was, because they were talking about his sexuality. But that's none of your business. At this point, Olivia's just giving Varney the blues. Like, what are you going to do to help this family? Because you did what Horace wanted you to do and didn't even consider anyone of us. Mallory is being facetious towards Olivia, and Olivia's not having it. Drunk and all, she's like, look, I see you for who you are, and don't try to patronize me and trying to be all this. Yes, ma'am, I know you and I see you. She's going to say a little bit more later, and I think really Olivia knows what Mallory's up to, or who Mallory is. Olivia goes back to her table, talking about how fine her man is and how big that D is. And as she's getting up, she takes Mallory's wine, because I think she ended up saying, like, how much wine did you have? And that set Olivia off. Don't ask me about this. Look, Miss Debbie Morgan is pretty fine as far as laughable as she doing this drunk scene. And she's going to get a little bit more wild a little bit later, so y'all hang tight. So Rain ends up going to the club with Alex. And he's trying to get her to make him come under the same bridge as Kimmy, Angel, and Sylvie. Well, they think Angel and Sylvie, just to be protected. And she said, I don't know you like that, and and I'm not at the place of trying to get people to convince you of anything. He gets a little bit more into his background and even how, I guess, he was summoned by or drafted by Jules. He was a weapons specialist back in the military, and he has martial arts, and that helped him to become a cop. Alex said, after stating all this, you need someone like me on your side. And she said, why would I need someone like you? We got, Kimmy and I got each other. And why would we want you? Because you're on everybody's side. And Alex said, all I am is on the side of me, which includes my mother and also my brother. Traxon calls, and Alex is trying to prove himself to Rain and asks, do you know where Dega is, or how can we get in touch with her? And he says, not really. And he ends up telling him that Angel is gone. And while I'm using these type of words, it's because I'm trying to be YouTube friendly, just to let you know. So that's why I'm not actually saying the DEAD word. So, and Traxon also says that Horace ordered the hit while Rain is listening. At this point, Rain is horrified and shook because she just didn't really think that Horace would do this. Meanwhile, as we're hearing this and Rain is just getting the news that Angel is gone, next thing you know, in the next scene, Angel, he busts into his baby mama's house, telling Yolanda, we gotta go, And she's still on some regular stuff and don't think that anything's wrong, Like, why are you in my house? You done broke my door, You need to get out. And he's trying to say, we gotta get out. However, Angel was doing a horrible job telling them that somebody's after them and they're going to come and take them out of this world. Come on. So Yolanda ended up kicking him out. At the same time, neighbors are hearing it. The neighbors ended up saying, look, you got a charger or something so I can call the police. They were saying that they were going to call the police. And he said, good, call them, blah, 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 blah. You have a charger so I can use the phone, And the dude goes upstairs to get a phone for him. Or maybe that was well, I may have told you something from episode 4. I'm sorry. Anyways, Harold, Gloria, and Norman. Oh, Norman's about to leave, greets them, I think Norman wanted to wash dishes or something, and he said, no, that's something that her and Harold would do. They like to wash dishes together. Gloria goes back into the other room and they talk for a second with Harold. Harold's breathing a little heavy and Norman's like, what's the problem? Why are you just so nervous? He's like, no, I'm okay, So Norman leaves. He gets into his car, turns his car engine on, and drives just a little bit of ways from the house. And then next thing you know, Gloria comes back into the other room with this box. And she says, Norman left this box. Norman left this box. And then Harold's like, a box? Wait. And then Norman presses the button and boom. I said, Lord Jesus. Norman reminds me of the Joker. Unhinged and doing the most. If he gonna get you, he gonna get you good. He's this comic book type character, this villain. Because everything he does it to the extreme. And you're like, what in the world is going on with you, Norman? That is so crazy. He done blew up that house with them 2 in it. So Lord. So that was the end of episode 3. Tell me how you thought about this episode and the carrying on that's happening thus far. So Angel is alive after all. So, but anyways, as y'all was getting my blood pressure up, I don't have no blood pressure, and I rebuke it off of my life. But anyways, please let me know what you thought of this episode. Like, comment, share, and until the next one, peace.